Madam Chair, I want to first begin by thanking you and the committee for drafting this letter on behalf of the committee that we sent to Secretary Mnuchin and to you, Chairman Powell, dated May 13, 2020, particularly addressing the lack of territorial inclusion in the municipal liquidity facility that's being administered by the Fed. More specifically, we write, through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, signed into law on March 27th, Congress instructed the Treasury Secretary to seek the establishment of a facility that would support the market for borrowing by state, municipal, and territorial governments. Despite the clear and unambiguous inclusion of territorial governments in these instructions, the Federal Reserve's Municipal Liquidity Facility, initially announced on April 9th, did not list territories among eligible issuers of debt. Furthermore, despite earlier requests to correct the original announcement, the Fed's subsequent announcement on April 27th significantly expanded the number of eligible issuers that the municipal liquidity facility would support, but continued to exclude territorial governments. Mr. Chairman, earlier in your dialogue with my colleague, Mr. Himes, I quoted you here saying that we're implementing the law that you passed. But the law that we passed in the CARES Act fully includes territories in the municipal liquidity facility, and yet the Fed is excluding territories from being able to access that facility. In response to our letter that we sent to you on May 13th, we got a response 2 days ago on June 15th from you, and the area that you address with respect to that concern, you state, and I quote, "As you know, we are required by law in our emergency lending to be well secured and to protect taxpayers from loss, and we are prohibited from lending to insolvent borrowers. The financial circumstances of the territories are generally inconsistent with these statutory constraints." Now, Mr. Chairman, notwithstanding Puerto Rico's circumstances, Guam is not insolvent. The Commonwealth of Northern Marianas are not insolvent. American Samoa is not insolvent, and the U.S. Virgin Islands are not insolvent. And so my question is, why are we excluding these territories from being able to access the municipal lending facility?
So as you pointed out, we are, what we put in our letter is really the way the law. We're required to conclude that we're adequately secured, and we have not been able to come to the view that any of the territories would be able to borrow from us, and that there are other government. I don't doubt the need for borrowing, but there are other programs which are better suited to serving the territory's needs.
But the CARES Act specifically authorizes territories to be able to access the municipal liquidity facility. It's very clear in the law, and the rationale for excluding them is not consistent with all of the territories. And I seriously doubt there's some kind of test being administered to every other jurisdiction in the country that's accessing the municipal liquidity facility. So I want to ask if there's going to be any reconsideration from the Fed given all of these facts.
All of the other, to be eligible for the municipal facility, borrowers are required to have an investment grade rating, and all of those who are eligible do have an investment grade rating. That's a requirement we set for the municipal loan facility.
The liquidity facility, though, Mr. Chairman, when we authorized it under the law, we did not set those kind of bars. And one of the reasons why the liquidity facility being accessible by the Fed is because when you have jurisdictions that are having more difficulty accessing capital markets, the reason why we provided those fundings is for the Fed to be able to provide that through the government.
I'm sorry that we disagree on this. I would just say that we're a provider of liquidity, and those are the judgments that we've made. We'll be happy to go back to the drawing board and look at it, but that's the judgment that we'd come to in terms of what Section 13.3 under the Federal Reserve Act requires of us.
Just to close, Madam Chair, because in the conversations today we talked about giving minorities more access and taking care of those communities. Our territories have upwards of 90% populations comprised of minorities. We talked about the need for supporting tourism industries. Our tourism industries in our territories are critically strained. We need to be able to access these resources that we're providing. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.